Imagine your life is running smoothly, routine, predictable, maybe even quite successful. Now, what if that very stability, that everyday routine you depend on, is actually the biggest hidden risk you face? The thing that could cause, well, catastrophic failure down the line. We spent the last few days really digging into a fascinating stack of sources, all circling around this one really powerful idea: the turkey problem, the illusion of safety. So, our goal here for this deep dive, it's pretty straightforward. We want to pull out the key insights, understand why comfort can blind us, how predictability, maybe counterintuitively, kills resilience, and, most importantly, what you can actually do about it. How can you design your life, your work to be genuinely anti-fragile?
Yeah, and to get right to the heart of it, we really have to start with the parable itself. It's simple, but quite effective. Picture a turkey, right, living on a farm. Every single day, the farmer shows up, fills the food bowl. The turkey, it logs this data point: food arrives, life is good, I'm safe. Day 100, same thing. Day 500, day 1000. Each morning just reinforces this belief. Life is stable, it's ordered, the farmer is like this benevolent constant. The punchline, the terrible irony, is that the moment the turkey feels most secure, most certain about its future, which happens to be the day before Thanksgiving, that's the exact moment its entire understanding of reality is proven devastatingly wrong. And that is the turkey problem. It's confusing that consistency, that long run of good days, with actual real long-term safety.
Okay, right. Let's unpack the human angle here because, let's be honest, we fall for this all the time. We're sort of human turkeys in many ways. Our brains, they're basically pattern recognition machines. They're
Wow.
designed to make sense of the world, reduce uncertainty. So when things go smoothly for a long time, we unconsciously take that smoothness as proof that things are inherently safe. And that illusion of safety, well, it's dangerous precisely because it makes us complacent. And the really brutal lesson, and drawn straight from these sources we looked at, is this: the smoother your past seems, the more likely it is you've built up these hidden, unmanaged risks. Smoothness actually breeds vulnerability, comfort. It really is the enemy of awareness.
Exactly. And what's really striking is how this isn't just a personal bias. It scales up dramatically. The sources we reviewed consistently point to the 2008 financial crisis as essentially the global Thanksgiving moment for the world of high finance. Think about it: for decades before 2008, on a national level, housing prices had basically only gone up. The standard risk models used by Wall Street, they effectively ignored the possibility of a huge systemic drop because, well, the historical data didn't really show it happening like that. Mortgage-backed securities were literally sold as almost risk-free. Why? Because of this blind faith in predictability. The idea that the last 30 years perfectly predicted the next few months.
Right, the models just extrapolated the recent past.
Precisely. And the whole system imploded, not really because of some totally random out-of-the-blue event, but because that very stability had made everyone structurally fragile, blind to the underlying risk.
And when it did start to crack, the shock was massive because nobody had built the capacity, the sort of institutional muscle to handle that kind of stress. But okay, it's not just global finance, right? Some of the most telling examples, the biggest turkeys, if you will, are these huge corporate giants, blinded by their own past success.
Yeah, think about Kodak. I mean, for a century, Kodak was photography. They actually invented one of the first digital cameras way back in 1975. But they essentially buried it, dismissed the technology. Why? Because, as the internal document showed later, they calculated that the film business would stay profitable for like another decade. They completely missed the nonlinear way technology disrupts things. Their long, stable history became their undoing.
Bankruptcy in 2012.
Wow, it's incredible, isn't it? Or look at Nokia, another giant. In 2007, they had something like 40% of the global mobile phone market. Massive dominance. And when the iPhone came out, they viewed it basically as a niche product, a novelty, not a fundamental threat to their entire business model.
They just couldn't imagine the game changing so fast.
Exactly. They had years, decades of success telling them they knew best. And within 5 years, poof, that stability vanished. Utter collapse of their market position.
And this connects directly, I think, to the individual level, too, to employees. One source talks about the danger of becoming a, quote, domesticated employee. You feel secure, loyalty pays off, you get promotions, the annual raise comes like clockwork. You're trading that day-to-day volatility for comfort.
But that comfort, that perceived safety, it can just evaporate overnight. Maybe it's automation, maybe outsourcing, maybe the company gets acquired, or just pivot strategy, things you have zero control over. And the individual has essentially mistaken the organization, the hand that feeds them, for a real guarantee of protection. They become domesticated because they've let their own survival skills atrophy. They've outsourced them.
That's the hidden liability, isn't it?
It is. It's the hidden liability of long-term safety. If you haven't had to actively look for a job or learn a completely new high-demand skill in, say, 10 or 15 years, well, your ability to actually handle a sudden shock, it's severely degraded.
That's, yeah, that's a sobering thought. So, okay, if this turkey problem is so pervasive, what does it mean for how we even think about risk, how we plan? It seems like it exposes this fundamental flaw in how we measure risk. We're always looking backward.
Precisely. That's the core issue. We use yesterday's weather to forecast tomorrow's storm, which is just logically flawed. History, as they say, is written by the survivors. When you study past market crashes or past failures, you're only looking at the things that didn't fail before that point. The map of the past is inherently incomplete. It only shows the roads that were safe, right up until the moment they weren't.
Like using a GPS that only logs the routes where you didn't crash last week. Not very helpful for avoiding future crashes.
Exactly. It's a rear-view mirror approach to navigating a minefield.
Okay, so this raises a huge question then. If stability is a trap, if predictability can actually cause fragility, how do we build real resilience? It sounds exhausting, frankly, to constantly distrust every calm moment.
Well, it's not about becoming paranoid. It's about shifting the goal. The goal isn't perfect stability, which is an illusion anyway. The goal is antifragility. That's a key term from the source material. It means building systems that don't just survive shocks, they actually get stronger from them.
Okay, stronger from shocks. How does that work?
Think about it this way. True safety isn't found in avoiding stress or volatility. It's built through exposure to it. Systems that are shielded from all volatility, they lose their capacity to deal with it, period.
Ah, like the forest analogy you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. That's a perfect illustration from the sources. A forest that's aggressively protected from every small natural fire, well, it just builds up huge amounts of dead wood, dry leaves, all this flammable material. The sources call this the accumulation of fragility. Then one spark, something that would have been minor decades ago, ignites this massive, uncontrollable megafire. Why? Because the necessary natural stressor, the small fire, was removed.
And there's an economic parallel there too, right?
A very strong one. Economies that try to shield themselves from every little downturn, maybe through constant stimulus or bailouts, they often just delay the reckoning and actually build up more fragility. When central banks try to smooth out every single dip in the cycle, they can end up creating bigger asset bubbles, more hidden debt, preventing the necessary clean out of bad investments. It leads to deeper crashes later on.
So you have to ask yourself.
You have to ask, what's the dry fuel accumulating in my life, in my career, my investments, my health? Where have I eliminated healthy stress for too long?
Okay, so the answer isn't avoidance, it's readiness, it's capability.
That's it. The strongest systems, whether biological or economic or personal, are the ones that can absorb stress and adapt. Think about military training. It deliberately introduces chaos. Elite athletes, they simulate worst-case scenarios constantly.
Because true safety doesn't come from eliminating risk. It comes from having the capability to handle it, the ability to pivot, to rebuild, to survive shocks when they inevitably happen.
So, moving towards the practical side. Escaping this turkey problem, it's partly psychological. You have to fight that urge for comfort. The real danger is how comfort justent numbs your awareness. Dependence starts to feel like safety, but it isn't. Think about the difference. An entrepreneur faces constant volatility, yes, but they own the risk. They adapt constantly because they have to.
Whereas the employee?
The long-term corporate employee often feels much safer day to day, but their fate rests entirely on decisions made far above them, decisions they can't influence. So learning to distrust that feeling of complete calm, that's the first step. It's about regaining a sense of agency.
But how do you actually do that? It's hardwired, this desire for the steady paycheck, the smooth path.
It is hard. You have to consciously shift from designing your life statically, assuming things stay the same, to designing it probabilistically, assuming things will change. And this is where something like an anti-fragile checklist, drawing from these ideas, becomes really useful.
Okay, what does that look like?
First, identify where you're dependent. Where are your single points of failure? You have to constantly stress test your own foundations. Ask the hard question. What happens if this one big thing, my job, my main client, my biggest investment, disappears tomorrow?
And if the honest answer is total collapse,
then your system is fragile, by definition.
So the antidote is diversification, but maybe more broadly than just stocks.
Exactly. Existential diversification. The material is clear, relying on just one job, one core skill, one major client, one investment strategy. That's a classic turkey move. True safety comes from redundancy.
Redundancy, like having multiple income streams, multiple skills.
Yes. Think about building maybe a T-shaped skill set.
Yeah.
You've got deep expertise in one core area that's the vertical bar of the T, but you also cultivate broad functional competence in several related areas. That's the horizontal bar.
So if your main thing gets disrupted, automated, whatever.
You can pivot. You can move laterally using those adjacent skills without having to start completely from scratch. That redundancy is your buffer against systemic shocks.
And this isn't just about career or money, is it? It applies to information, too.
Absolutely critical. Avoid being a mental turkey. Don't just consume news or opinions from one source, one bubble, that always confirms what you already believe. That creates intellectual fragility, confirmation bias.
So the antidote there is informational diversification.
Deliberately seek out perspectives that challenge you. Read things you disagree with. Confront dissenting views. Argue with yourself, essentially. It keeps your thinking sharp, flexible, and more rational, especially when everyone else around you might be panicking because their narrow worldview just shattered.
Okay, so diversification, stress testing. How do you build that capacity for adaptation? It sounds like you need practice.
You do. And the way to get that practice is by intentionally seeking out variation, introducing small, manageable stressors. We call them micro-Thanksgiving.
Micro-Thanksgivings, I like that.
Right.
So not catastrophic failure, but little challenges.
Exactly. It doesn't mean you have to quit your job tomorrow and live in the woods. It means introducing small, controlled discomforts that force you to adapt. Maybe it's something physical, like taking a cold shower occasionally. Maybe it's professional volunteering for a project outside your comfort zone, one with some uncertainty. Maybe it's social practicing public speaking, even if it terrifies you.
These small stressors act like weightlifting for your resilience.
That's the perfect analogy. Muscles grow stronger because they're stressed, broken down slightly, and forced to rebuild, not because they're pampered. These microstressors do the same for your adaptive capacity.
So the goal isn't to eliminate risk, but maybe to structure things so your potential downside from any single shock is limited, survivable.
While keeping your potential upside open. Use volatility as information, as training fuel, not just as something to fear and avoid at all costs.
Right.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've covered quite a bit. Why stability can paradoxically plant the seeds of fragility. How big patterns like 2008 or the fall of companies like Nokia really illustrate this reliance on past success leading to complacency. And crucially, the practical steps you can start taking. Diversification, not just financial, but skills, income, even information. And this idea of intentional stress testing, seeking out those micro-Thanksgivings. Yeah, and maybe the final thought to leave you with, something to chew on as you look at your own routines. Real freedom, genuine control, it often begins when you stop mistaking that feeling of comfort for actual control over events. You can't eliminate risk from life, it's impossible. But you can build systems, personal, professional, that actually benefit from a bit of chaos. You can make yourself harder to break, harder to kill, metaphorically speaking.
Remember that core principle. The calmest looking surface can hide the most powerful currents underneath.
The deepest, calmest seas often hide the biggest waves.
So enjoy the routine, sure, but always question the assumptions behind it. Always ask who's filling my bowl and what happens if they stop. That seemingly safest life, the unexamined one, might just be the most dangerous of all. Keep digging into these ideas, keep questioning, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.